saw a kid stealing from my store. Then I recognized the hunger in his eyes. We've all heard the phrase, desperate times call for desperate measures. But nothing prepares you for the moment when desperation walks through your door wearing a child's face. As a small convenience store owner in a working-class neighborhood, I thought I'd seen everything. Shoplifters, scammers, even the occasional aggressive customer. But the day I caught a 10-year-old boy slipping packets of crackers into his worn backpack changed everything I thought I knew about right and wrong. This isn't just another story about theft. It's about the invisible line between survival and morality, about the choices we make when we're pushed to our limits, and about how one split-second decision can ripple through multiple lives in ways we never expect. What started as a typical Tuesday afternoon became a defining moment that challenged my understanding of justice, compassion, and what it truly means to do the right thing. The ordinary day. The fluorescent lights hummed their usual monotonous tune as I restocked the candy aisle that Tuesday afternoon. Business had been slow. It always was mid-month when most families were stretching their paychecks thin. I'd owned Martinez's corner store for 8 years, and I'd learned to read the rhythm of my neighborhood like a familiar song. First week of the month meant busy cash registers and full shopping baskets. By week 3, people bought in smaller quantities, counting change more carefully. I was arranging chocolate bars when the bell above the door chimed. Through the security mirror angled in the corner, I watched a small figure enter, a boy, maybe 10 or 11 years old, wearing a jacket 2 sizes too big and jeans with frayed hems that dragged on the floor. His sneakers had seen better days, held together with what looked like duct tape around the soles. He didn't browse like most kids did, eyes wide with wonder at the colorful displays. Instead, he moved with purpose, his gaze darting between the shelves and the counter where I stood. Something about his body language triggered my internal alarm. The way his shoulders hunched forward, how his hands trembled slightly as he reached for a bag of chips. I'd caught shoplifters before, usually teenagers looking for thrills or adults feeding various habits. But watching this kid through the mirror, I felt something different in my chest. This wasn't excitement or entitlement. This was fear mixed with determination, the look of someone who'd wrestled with their conscience and lost. He grabbed 2 packets of crackers, a small jar of peanut butter, and an apple. For a moment, I thought he might actually pay. He even approached the counter, digging into his pockets. But his hands emerged empty except for a few coins, maybe 70 cents total. I watched his face crumble, watched him glance at the security camera, then at me. Then he did it. Quick as lightning, he shoved the items into his backpack and bolted for the door. The chase and confrontation. "Hey, stop!" The words left my mouth before I'd even decided to chase him. My feet pounded the pavement as I ran after the kid. He was fast, but his oversized jacket slowed him down, and those disintegrating sneakers weren't built for speed. I caught up to him half a block away, grabbing his shoulder as gently as I could while still stopping his momentum. "Let me go," he shouted, twisting in my grip. Up close, I could see details I'd missed in the store. The dark circles under his eyes, the way his cheekbones stood out too prominently, the grime under his fingernails that spoke of days without proper washing. "Kid, you can't just take things without paying," I said, trying to catch my breath. "That's not how this works." He looked up at me then, and that's when I saw it. The hunger. Not just physical hunger, though that was certainly there in his hollow cheeks and thin wrists, but a deeper hunger for dignity, for hope, for someone to see him as more than a problem to be solved or a statistic to be filed away. "I'm sorry," he whispered, and I heard his voice crack. "I'm really sorry, I haven't eaten since yesterday morning, and my little sister, she's only 6, and she's crying because her stomach hurts, and my mom, she's trying but the bills." He stopped talking, his jaw clenched tight like he was angry at himself for saying too much. In his eyes, I saw shame fighting with defiance, pride battling necessity. I saw every difficult choice I'd ever had to make reflected back at me, magnified through the lens of childhood innocence forced to grow up too fast. The backpack hung between us like evidence at a trial. I could call the authorities. I could ban him from my store. I could do what the rule book said I should do. Or I could do something else entirely. A glimpse into his world. "What's your name?" I asked, releasing his shoulder but not stepping back. "Marcus," he said quietly, his eyes fixed on the ground. "I'm Raphael. How about we go back to my store and talk? No trouble, I promise, just talk." He hesitated, every muscle in his small body tensed for flight, but hunger and exhaustion won out over fear. He nodded. Back inside the store, I locked the front door and flipped the sign to closed. Marcus stood near the counter, still clutching his backpack like a lifeline. I grabbed a folding chair from the back room and gestured for him to sit. "When did you last eat a real meal?" I asked, pulling out a sandwich I'd brought for my own lunch. "Sunday," he admitted. "Mom got paid Friday, but the landlord came Saturday saying we were 2 months behind. She had to give him almost everything just to keep us from getting kicked out. She's working double shifts at the diner, but it's never enough." As he talked, the words came faster, like a dam breaking. His father had left 2 years ago. His mother worked herself to exhaustion but couldn't keep up with rent, utilities, and food for 2 growing kids. They'd applied for assistance, but paperwork took time, and bureaucracy moved slow while hunger moved fast. "My sister, Emma, she asked me this morning why we couldn't have breakfast," Marcus continued, his voice thick with emotion. "She's 6 years old, and she's starting to understand that we're different from other families, that we don't have what they have." He looked up at me with eyes far older than 10. "I know what I did was wrong. I know stealing is bad. My mom would be so disappointed if she knew, but I couldn't listen to Emma cry anymore. I couldn't." I handed him the sandwich. He stared at it like it might disappear if he blinked. "Eat," I said. "Then we'll figure this out together." The decision point. While Marcus ate, slowly at first, then with the desperate hunger of someone who didn't know when their next meal would come, I wrestled with my own conscience. The business owner in me saw a clear-cut case. Theft is theft. Rules are rules. If I let this slide, word would spread. My store would become a target. But the human in me, the father in me, my own kids were grown now, but I remembered those lean years, saw a child in crisis. I saw my younger self, the Raphael who'd emigrated with nothing, who'd worked 3 jobs to build something, who'd sometimes had to choose between pride and survival. The stolen items sat on the counter, 2 packets of crackers, peanut butter, and apple, maybe $8 total. $8 that meant nothing to my bottom line but everything to this kid. "Marcus," I said once he'd finished eating, "I need you to understand something. What you did today was wrong. Stealing is never the answer, no matter how desperate you feel. Do you understand that?" He nodded, shame coloring his cheeks again. "But," I continued, "I also understand why you did it. And I think we can find a better solution than either calling the authorities or pretending this never happened." His eyes widened with hope mixed with suspicion. "Here's what I'm proposing. You come to my store 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday after school. You help me out for 2 hours each day. Stocking shelves, sweeping, organizing the stockroom. Nothing too hard. In exchange, I pay you minimum wage and you take home food for your family. Real food, not just crackers and peanut butter." I watched his face process this offer, seeing calculation mixed with disbelief. "Why would you do that?" he asked. "I tried to rob you." "Because everyone deserves a second chance," I replied. "And because sometimes the right thing isn't the easy thing." The first week. Marcus showed up that following Monday at 4 o'clock sharp, his too big jacket replaced with a slightly better fitting sweater that still looked secondhand. His sister Emma came with him, a tiny girl with pigtails and her brother's same large, wary eyes. "I didn't have anyone to watch her," Marcus explained apologetically. "Mom's working until 9. "That's fine," I said. "Emma, you can do homework at that table by the window, and there's juice in the refrigerator if you're thirsty." Those first days were awkward. Marcus worked with intense focus, like he was afraid I'd change my mind if he made a single mistake. He organized the canned goods by type and size, swept every corner of the store until the floors gleamed, and never once complained about any task I gave him. Emma, meanwhile, sat at her designated table with worksheets spread around her. During breaks, Marcus would check on her, helping with math problems or reading assignments. Watching them together, his protective posture, her absolute trust in him, reminded me of everything good and broken in the world. At the end of that first shift, I handed Marcus $40 cash and 2 bags of groceries: rice, beans, pasta, canned vegetables, fresh fruit, bread, milk, eggs, and chicken. His hands shook as he took them. "This is too much," he protested. "It's exactly right," I countered. "You earned every bit of it." That night, Marcus's mother came to the store just before closing. She was a thin woman with tired eyes and work-worn hands, wearing a diner uniform and carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. "You're Mr. Martinez," she said. "I'm Claire, Marcus's mom. He told me what happened. What you're doing for us. I don't know how to thank you." "Teach your son that one mistake doesn't define him," I said. "That's thanks enough." Unexpected ripples. Word spread through the neighborhood faster than I'd anticipated, but not in the way I'd feared. Instead of people trying to take advantage, something else happened. Something beautiful. Mrs. Chen from the restaurant 3 doors down stopped by on Wednesday. "I heard what you did for that boy," she said. "I've got leftover food every night that just goes to waste. Could he pick it up on his way home? Good food, dumplings, rice, vegetables." The next day, Tom from the bookshop brought over a box of gently used children's books. "For the little sister," he explained gruffly. "Kids should have books." By Friday, a small network had formed. The neighborhood had quietly mobilized around this one family, each person contributing what they could. The dry cleaner offered to wash clothes for free. The school counselor, once informed of the situation, expedited the family's assistance applications. Even some of my regular customers started buying extra items specifically to donate. Marcus noticed. "Why is everyone being so nice?" he asked one afternoon while restocking the chip aisle. "Because people are fundamentally good," I told him. "They just need to be reminded sometimes. You needed help and I helped you. That reminded others that they could help too. It's like dropping a stone in water. The ripples spread out in ways you never expect." But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were challenges. Some customers questioned my decision, arguing I was being too soft, that I'd set a bad precedent. One regular customer, an older man who'd shopped at my store for years, confronted me directly. "You're encouraging theft," he said bluntly. "Next thing you know, every kid in the neighborhood will think they can just take what they want." "I'm encouraging compassion," I replied. "There's a difference between teaching a lesson and destroying a life. Marcus made a mistake born of desperation. He's learning responsibility, work ethic, and dignity. That seems like a better outcome than a juvenile record, don't you think?" The man left without responding, but he came back the next week with a bag of school supplies for Marcus and Emma. Transformation and growth. 3 months passed. Marcus transformed from a nervous, hollow-eyed kid into someone recognizable but different, still thin but healthier, still serious but occasionally smiling. He'd learned the rhythms of the store, anticipated what needed to be done before I asked, and even started suggesting improvements to our inventory organization. His schoolwork improved too. His teachers reported better attendance, more focus, and completed homework. Emma blossomed alongside her brother, her timid demeanor replaced with the natural exuberance of a child who wasn't constantly worried about her next meal. But the most profound transformation was in Marcus himself. One afternoon, as he was restocking the cooler, I noticed him stop a younger kid, maybe 8 years old, who was eyeing the candy display with the same desperate calculation Marcus had once used. "Hey," Marcus said gently, "you hungry?" The kid nodded, shame and fear in equal measure on his face. "Come on," Marcus said, glancing at me for approval. At my nod, he continued. "Mr. Martinez gives me my lunch break at 4. I always have extra. You can share with me, and then we can talk about maybe you helping out around the store too, if you want." Watching Marcus extend the same grace he'd received to someone else in need, I felt something shift in my chest. This was it, the point of it all. Not just feeding a hungry kid or preventing a theft, but breaking a cycle. showing a child that the world could be kind, that people would help, that one mistake didn't have to define your entire future. Claire, Marcus's mother, managed to reduce her hours slightly after the assistance finally came through and a local nonprofit helped with back rent. She still worked hard, that never changed, but the crushing weight of impossible choices lifted slightly. She could breathe again. "You saved us," she told me one evening, tears in her eyes. "Not just with the job and the food, but with the dignity. You treated Marcus like he mattered, like he was worth investing in. Do you know what that means to a kid who was starting to believe he was worthless?" The lasting impact. A year later, Marcus still works at my store, though now he also volunteers at a community center teaching younger kids about responsibility and making good choices. His mother completed a certification program and now works as a medical assistant with benefits and stable hours. Emma reads at a level 2 grades above her age and dreams of becoming a teacher. The neighborhood network that formed around their crisis never really disbanded. It evolved into a formal mutual aid society, with different community members contributing resources, time, and support to families in need. My store became an unofficial hub, a place where people could discreetly leave donations or ask for help without judgment. But the real lasting impact is harder to quantify. It's in the way Marcus carries himself now, with quiet confidence instead of desperate fear. It's in how he talks to other struggling kids with empathy instead of judgment. It's in the thank you note he wrote me that I keep framed behind the counter, with its simple but profound message. "You saw me when I needed to be seen. Thank you for looking past the worst moment and seeing who I could become." Sometimes I think about that Tuesday afternoon, about the split-second decision to chase Marcus down the street. What if I'd called the authorities instead? What if I'd simply banned him from the store? The trajectory of his life, and Emma's and Claire's, might have been completely different. One small act of compassion created ripples that are still spreading. People sometimes ask if I was afraid others would take advantage of my kindness, would see it as weakness or opportunity. The truth is, yes, I worried about that. But I also realized that living in fear of being taken advantage of is no way to live at all. Most people aren't looking to exploit kindness. They're desperately hoping someone will extend it to them in their darkest moment. Marcus taught me something too. He showed me that the line between right and wrong isn't always as clear as we want it to be. That sometimes the moral choice is the messy, complicated one that doesn't fit neatly into categories of justice or fairness. Sometimes the right thing is simply seeing another human being in their full complexity, their mistakes, their potential, their dignity, and choosing to believe in the latter. The story of Marcus and his family isn't unique. Countless families face similar struggles every day, hidden behind closed doors and forced smiles. What makes it significant is the reminder that each of us holds the power to change someone's trajectory with a single decision. Compassion isn't naive optimism or reckless kindness. It's the deliberate choice to see the person behind the problem, to recognize that circumstances can push good people toward desperate choices, and that second chances aren't just nice gestures. They're transformative opportunities. Marcus didn't need someone to excuse his theft or pretend it didn't matter. He needed someone to acknowledge the wrong while seeing past it to the why behind it. The morality of this story isn't simply that stealing is wrong or that we should help those in need. It's more nuanced. It's about the responsibility we have to look deeper, to ask questions, to resist the easy answers that make us feel righteous but solve nothing. It's about understanding that justice without mercy is just cruelty in a different form, and mercy without accountability is enabling in disguise. Marcus learned that actions have consequences, but also that one mistake doesn't have to become a defining characteristic. He learned the dignity of work, the value of community, and the transformative power of someone believing in him. I learned that sometimes the best way to prevent crime isn't through punishment, but through addressing the desperation that causes it. The $8 theft that could have resulted in a criminal record instead became the catalyst for profound change, not just for one family, but for an entire community reminded of its capacity for collective compassion. That's the real lesson here. We don't have to choose between justice and mercy, between accountability and compassion. We can hold both, understanding that the measure of our humanity isn't found in our strictest moments, but in our wisest ones. Every day, people in our communities are making impossible choices between dignity and survival. The question isn't whether we'll encounter these moments. We will. The question is whether we'll have the courage to respond with both truth and grace, to see the person beyond the problem, and to believe that investment in human potential is never wasted, even when the returns aren't immediately visible. Marcus still comes to my store, though now it's to visit as much as to work. And every time I see him, I'm reminded that the most profound changes in the world don't come from grand gestures or sweeping policies. They come from individual moments when someone chooses connection over condemnation, understanding over judgment, and possibility over precedent. That's the hunger we should all recognize, not just the physical hunger for food, but the deeper human hunger for dignity, for hope, for someone to believe we're worth more than our worst moment. The day I saw that hunger in Marcus's eyes, I saw a choice. And in choosing compassion, I gained far more than I gave.